everyone, Jennifer Horman here. I'm here to talk about our case study assignment. Unfortunately, I was not able to have it created and done before Wednesday because of the workload that I had this week. It just prevented me from being able to do any assignments or homework throughout the week. So here I am on Saturday, even though it's better to do it, turn it in than not turn it at all, and at least get some credit for it. So unfortunately, there's consequences to living life and going to school and being a responsible adult and parent and so on that kind of kept me from preventing to do my homework. But anyway, here it is, and let's move on. So the case study selection, the first case study that I selected was 2.1, an emerging leader. And so I thought it was really interesting because it talks about kind of just about nature versus nurture and having passion kind of in your job, how it affects you as a leader. And so I kind of found that was interesting because I always find it interesting, the whole topic of nature versus nurture and just how passionate people can be versus one over the other when really it probably is just both in a marriage together. Then the second case study I chose was the From Two to One, which is basically about a gentleman who has a successful company and has to get rid of one of his managers and just going through the whole process and how that would be challenging in itself. So I think both of these can be challenging, and so that's why I picked them. So the first case study, which is 2.1, an emerging leader. So it is about a gentleman named Tim, and he believes that there's a tension between nature and nurture. And so he believes that there's two sets of DNA that we have. So the first one, which is our God-given talents that come from our biological parents or come from his biological parents. So that's the molecular cellular DNA that's been created. It is who he is. It makes our blonde hair, blue eyes, light colored skin, dark colored skin, brown eyes, pink hair, whatever it may be, but also how our brain functions. But then his second set of DNA comes from his adopted parents. And so with that, he included his religious beliefs and that he was around a caring family. And so that set of DNA came from watching how his family functioned and worked in the world and how they cared for people and just kind of their thoughts and processes that became transplanted. So that DNA became transplanted inside of him and helped make him who he was. So he was naturally somebody who was outgoing, so he was more of an extrovert. But his adopted family was more introverted. They kind of would rather sit back on the outlines and let everybody else kind of be on the front line. So that's kind of how his family was and kind of the differences between there. So growing up, he had two jobs before college, and so it was selling vacuums and collecting payments on debts. So selling vacuums, he was not successful at it at all. So he would try sell them, couldn't sell anything. He even tried selling it to his mom, and his mom wouldn't even buy a vacuum. So that wasn't very good. The second job that he had was collecting payment on debt. And to me personally, I've done this in the past as part of my job duties, and it's very challenging because mostly people are not very happy when you try to collect money from them on a debt that's owed, and it's typically because they're in a really hard season of their life and they can't pay their bill, and so it makes them feel frustrated that they can't even do what they need to do, and it just the burden that they feel. But anyway, with that job, he was very successful at it, and he was successful at it because he found purpose in his job. So his job, with when it became time to helping people, that's what he saw. It was helping people. And so when he would talk to them, he was trying to help them understand that he was there to help them to pay their debts and how to work through that. So he had persuasion. His persuasion, I'm sorry, had purpose. So there was purpose in why he was trying to persuade people to pay the amount due that they owed versus trying to persuade people to spend money maybe on something that they don't need. So he found purpose in that, and he's seen it as he was helping people through their problems and difficulties. And so when I was reading through this, that was really kind of the statement that stuck out was your persuasion has to have a purpose. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of talking. And so like currently, like I in our department, we really need another position to help us navigate so the workload becomes lighter. So I've got to find a way that I can persuade everyone that we need a new position to help take the burden off. So that gives me purpose and passion in my persuasion. And then he had two jobs after college, which I just kind of want to read over them really quickly to you. So his first one, he actually went back and got a degree in communication in his later 20s, and he managed a $1.2 million budget, and did a really good job at it on raising money and putting resources and fires out. Um, but he had difficulty on handling the day-to-day operations of things. He spent more time with the outside HR issues versus the inside HR. So they did a survey on him with the staff, and the staff had to say, let me find it here. He does a great job as a leader, but he is our boss and we need him here. So he spent a lot of time outside the company trying to handle things. And so it put a burden on the employees, because they missed their boss and they really needed him there to be there to lead them and not just be the phone boss is what they needed. Um, so then he took another job as the vice president, um, of a college or a university, and he found this opportunity to really use his DNA because he found purpose for his persuasion in doing what he needed to do. And so they did a lot of things to help the community, because sometimes you may give somebody money and then you're wanting them to pay it back instead of just doing it out of the goodness of your heart. Um, and so he just really felt that he had purpose in this job to help people. So in a second job, obviously, he was more successful. So for the questions in the case study is like, what is your reaction to Tim's story? So, like I said, the one thing that really stuck out was my persuasion has to have a purpose. So, when you're trying to win somebody over, or to make your argument stand out, or to really make your point stand, you got to have a purpose in it. Because if you don't have a purpose in it and you don't feel like it's purposeful, it might not be fulfilling and you might not be successful at it. Just like with Tim, I mean, the first job that he had, he was successful, but not in leading people the way that he needed to, because he struggled with day-to-day operations. Versus the second job after college that he had, where he felt the passion to help people, so that's what made him successful. And so that's really what I kind of take away from it. The nature versus nurture playing a significant role in Tim's leadership journey. From your perspective, which has the greatest impact on Tim? So I think even though he was an outgoing person and he wasn't afraid to get up and lead, I think that the nurture played more of a role, because if you've seen in the job pre-college and post-college, it was the same type of thing he was looking for. He was looking for a job to help people. And once he found that purpose in helping people, he became successful. So the nurture part of his side of his DNA, I think, played a bigger role than his nature part, because his family was religious and caring and helpful. So that's the role that he chose for a career that made him feel purposeful, was something that was caring and helpful to people. The third question is the six of the major traits described in this chapter. Which trait are Tim's strongest and which ones are his weakest? So as I look across these, I feel like he does a really good job at all of these. So he's very intelligent. He's confident for sure. He has charisma for sure, determination for sure, sociability and integrity. Yes, absolutely. I think probably one of his strongest traits were integrity, because he really was about doing what was right. And so by doing what was right, it was by helping people. So his integrity was probably one of his stronger traits. I would say confidence and charisma were probably another strong one, because he was more outgoing, so he was not afraid to be out there and put himself out. As probably one of his weaker traits, I'm not sure which one would be the weakest one. Um, I think maybe I really don't know which one would be his weakest because I mean he demonstrated a lot of characteristics. It was just finding as a leader, it was just finding where he fit. I think that was where his weakness was. Instead of making sure that it was a good fit where he belonged, he just went and did it. So maybe confidence is maybe more of his weakness because he was just confident he'd be able to do anything when maybe that's not always the case. So sometimes our strongest characteristic is also our weakest characteristic because it can make us strong. But if we're too much into that characteristic, it can also make us weak. What characteristics of Tim's leadership would you like to incorporate into your own style of leadership? I think probably I really liked how he just liked to help people and just finding passion for what you're doing. I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from this thing is just his passion for doing what's right. The second case study was the 2-to-1. So, a gentleman owns a cleaning company that offers employment to college students. Due to the economic downturn, he has done several cutbacks, but realizes he has to let one of his managers go and combined all the teams together. The first manager is a task oriented manager and is one of the hardest workers that he has. This manager likes to make everything more efficient and organized, and it has actually made the company recognized for 3 years in a row as the best professional cleaning service. The other manager, his name is Asher, and he's more of a relationship centered manager. He takes time to build relationships with employees, and all the employees, oh, excuse me, feel as if they could talk to him as if they had a problem. Mark likes both Dan and Asher in their own way as individual good leaders, but he worries about each individual style and how it will affect the other teams when he brings them together. So he's really struggling with who should he let go. So the first question is using ideas from the chapter to describe Dan's and Asher's styles of leadership. So Dan's style is a task-oriented style. So he likes checklists. He likes things that are methodical so that everything is planned and everything is organized. And that's how he becomes successful. Asher is a more relationship style oriented person. So he is pretty simple. He likes to build relationships with people. So he feels that if he has a relationship with somebody, they will be more effective in their work because they see that employee sees that they're cared for and that they're liked and that they're part of that in group. So then they want to do more. How will Asher's employees, who are used to being able to manage their own way, respond to Dan's task-oriented style? So what I have to say to that is yikes. So when you have employees who are used to being very structured and know, yep, I know what to expect. You're going to have a list for me. I'm going to come in, I'm going to complete it. My job's done. To a new manager who wants to have relationships, there's going to be friction at first because they're used to kind of doing their own thing, being like, hey, I'm trusted that I can make a right decision. So I just do my job at the best I can because I'm trusted. So they're going to feel like there's a trust issue. And so that will cause some issues with those employees if you were to go to this direction. If you were to go to the opposite direction, how would Dan's employees who are used to being given clear direction and respond to Asher's relationship style. So at first, they're probably going to feel like it's chaos. Honestly, they're going to feel chaos. And they're going to be like, oh, this is great. You like me, but I don't know what's going on. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do because you've just taken all the rules from me. And now we want to be all friends and hold hands and play on the merry-go-round. It's probably how they're going to feel. So no matter how you slice it, it's going to be a difficult situation on which employee you get rid of. If you were an employee at Mark's Cleaning Company, would you want to let Dan go or Asher go? Well, that's a really hard one, and I don't know if I can even answer it because I feel like my husband is more like Asher, and I'm more like Dan when it comes to leadership. I like task. I look for efficiency. I look for ways to make things smoother and faster and better. My husband loves talking to people. He just enjoys relationships, and people function great under him. Like I've just seen people blossom under him because of the relationship. So really, I feel like I'm picking between me and my husband, and it kind of feels like probably the relationship is going to be maybe better.